Servus Männer, it's Red Pill Germany again. A couple of days, something happened in the Austrian Alps, in the Kleinwalsertal. That is a little secluded valley that is only really accessible from the German side. Very beautiful area, very interesting area. I was hiking there a lot myself in the past, and I will do so again. This story made the news in Austria, Switzerland and Germany, and it is about a school trip of a Western German school in Ludwigshafen, that's next to Mannheim. So it is in Western Germany at the Rhine. And it is the story of 99 students and 8 teachers who had to be rescued in the Alps by helicopter. Yes, we're talking about over 100 people to be rescued by helicopter. The students were only between 12 and 14 years old, so we're talking about very young students, and this was not a special mountaineering class of hand-picked students who were prepared for this by their parents. No, we're just talking about random Western German students. You can guess how such a class or several classes of students look like. Very diverse, I'm sure. So of course these teachers are in big trouble now, the ones who made the decision to go there. However, the media was quick to also blame a person who wrote a guide on an internet blog about hiking, and he described the tour as a after work tour, and he said it was easy. And based on this description, apparently those teachers picked that trail, and then I don't know if the teachers themselves blamed this guy, but at least I read some outrage in the media about this guy and how can he describe this very, very difficult tour as so easy, and they were partly at least blaming that guy. And I will show you today that this guy had done nothing wrong back then when he wrote this report. If these teachers had read this report correctly, they would have seen that this is actually a very, very challenging hike. So in my opinion, this story is very interesting because it shows how younger teachers and the younger generation have lost all sense for danger and for reality, apparently, and something like this would have never happened a couple of decades ago. I can tell you how this went down when I was a student, and I will show you in this case how many red flags and how many checks had to be disregarded in order for this story to happen the way it did. So I think this unique story tells us a lot about what is going on currently, especially with the younger generation. So anyway, in today's video, I want to tell you the story. I want to relate to you the reported facts about this curious incident and then give you my opinion about it. So according to the media reports that I read, those teachers must have read about this hike on this website about hiking and mountain climbing, and they must have thought this fits very well and this is a good idea. We will go over this blog entry or this description in a minute. So once again, it was 8 teachers and 99 students. Absolutely insane for a hike like that, as we will see later. So their destination was the Walmendinger Horn in the Kleinwalsertal, and they wanted to go there via the Heuberggrat. Grat is a German word which means crest, and that should already be the first hint why taking a bunch of 12-year-olds there is not a good idea. A grat, of course, a crest is an exposed ridge over which you have to walk. And to the left or the right or on either side, it goes down hundreds of meters in very steep terrain. This is very deadly, very dangerous, especially for a child who has never done that before. So it's already in the name of the tour why this was a very bad idea, and that's just the first of many of these red flags. And now I think is a good time to look at the description that they probably used. I looked that up on hiker.org, and I'm pretty sure that this is the description because the key word after work tour is what is also used in this report, and that is cited by the media. That is the keyword that has led those teachers to believe that this is an easy hike, but that is completely wrong. And if they had any understanding of the German language and basic logic, they should have known that. So let's look at it. Heuberggrad, 1794 meters, a quiet hike in the overfrequented Kleinwalsertal. So the point of the author is that there are many ways to get up to this destination, but many of them are overcrowded with other hikers, so he wanted to choose a less frequented path. But he writes very explicitly that it is very challenging. He says it was easy for him, but he is obviously a guy who does a lot of these tours and who is very experienced. So when someone says something is easy, that is never an absolute statement, it's always a relative statement, and he describes it very well. He says, for example, that for some parts there is no visible track, no visible trail, and you have to find the way on your own. He also says that it is exposed, and that means danger. Exposed terrain, dangerous. It goes down, steep. He also says that there are parts where you need to climb. That means you need to use your hands and you have to be schwindelfrei. That means you must be able to tolerate heights and stuff like that, and you shouldn't get dizzy in such a situation. That is something that cannot be said for 100 random 12-year-old students. And now let's talk about maybe the most important red flag that these teachers ignored. The guy says in his report that on the way there is a sign on the trail that says this is barred, this is off limits for hikers. Only climbers are allowed to proceed. If you see such a sign and you have 100 12 to 14-year-old kids with you, don't go there, turn back. And then the next red flag. This guy also posted some pictures, of course, several pictures of his hike. And there you can clearly see how narrow this path is, how exposed it is, that there are trees and shrubbery in the way, and it's very difficult, and also some climbing. And this is nothing that 100 random 12-year-olds can do once again. I mean, seeing these pictures means don't go there with children that have never done this before. And especially not at this student-teacher ratio. Only 8 teachers for 99 students. You cannot even overlook such a big crowd on such a narrow path. It is absolutely unbelievable what these teachers did. But if all of this is too indirect and too wishy-washy for you, let's look at the very top of the description on hiker.org. It is a little table that gives you all the important dates, and it says that it is a T4 on the alpine hiking scale and a level 1 on the climbing scale. If you look up T4, it means alpine hiking, and that can mean no visible trail for some time. It means that you need your hands. It means exposed territory. It can mean Schrofen, and Schrofen is something that I should explain. It's a German hiking or alpine term, a mountaineering term, and it means that it is most of the time steep terrain with sharp rock ridges that are piercing through soil and grass. Sometimes there is no soil and grass, but it is this kind of spiky, rocky terrain, normally on a slope. And Schrofen is a terrain that is underestimated very often. It is very treacherous, especially when there is soil and grass and it's raining, because then it becomes slippery. If there is only rock, it is not as bad, but in rain, this is very dangerous. And people think you can just walk there, but if you're not used to this, this can become a death trap. T4 also means that you need proper hiking boots or shoes. It also means that you must be able to navigate in unknown terrain, or that you have to have a good overview of the terrain. It requires alpine experience, which obviously none of these people have. And I think we don't need to look up one on a climbing scale, because none of these people had climbing gear or were experienced in climbing. And even though it's the lowest level on a climbing scale, it is a climbing scale, a mountain climbing scale, for Christ's sake. So anyway, the end result was that it started raining and some students slipped. I think 2 of them had some injuries, and then some panic broke out on this ridge, on this crest. That is, of course, absolutely great. And then a teacher called for emergency, and then the helicopter had to rescue them, I think 3 at a time or something. Anyway, the helicopter was busy for half of the day, and until the evening, I think at 9 p.m., the last person was rescued from this ridge. As you can imagine, this helicopter is not cheap, and probably the school or the teachers have to pay for that. Once again, I don't know if the teachers blamed that blogger or this hiker who wrote this report that I explained to you, that I showed to you, or if just the media were putting some of the blame on this guy. But it is very obvious that he did nothing wrong, and once again, an after-hour trail just means, and he did it in, I think, under 3 hours. Yeah, it was 2 hours 15 for that guy, and it just means that it is not a day-filling hike, a day-filling activity. You can do this, for example, after work. It is a qualifier of the duration of the whole thing and not of the difficulty. He wrote that it was quiet, and of course he said it wasn't so difficult for him, but once again, he is experienced and he knows what he's doing, so yeah, for him it wasn't difficult. So when I was a student, like back in the 90s, we also went into the mountains, into the Alps, but we were older. We were not 12. We were already older. And the teacher that took us there, he said only 12 people, no more. 12 is the limit. And you know what else he did? He already hiked this path before, and he knew exactly where the key parts are, which he explained to us. Then he took us on a Saturday on a hike in the area where he just checked our gear, if we're comfortable in our boots, if we are wearing our backpack correctly and all these things, and if we're physically capable to lift a 12-kilogram backpack over a large distance. And there was actually one guy who didn't perform that well. And that teacher sat down with him and said, look, there is no way I'm taking you there. You are a risk to yourself, don't do it. And after that Saturday test run, that guy actually understood that and he accepted that because he noticed himself how hard that was for him and how unprepared he was for such an ordeal. For him, for us it was easy. So I told you about all these red flags that they ignored, all these signs of danger, and one of them was literally a sign. But also, did none of these 8 teachers bother to check what T4 and 1 on a climbing scale actually means? Did none of the parents check out that? Were the parents not informed about this trail? Did none of the parents of these 99 students check what kind of trail that is and if their children have the proper gear? So this is how my country changed over the last 30 or something years. It went from don't use internet sources, anybody can write anything on the internet, to hey, I found a really great text here, but I choose to misunderstand it, and I am taking a bunch of kids into the mountains, putting them in great danger, and well, I couldn't care less to do any due diligence and preparation whatsoever. It seems like we have a perfect combination of carelessness and just ignorance. Back in the day, people knew about these dangers. They knew nature. These people in Ludwigshafen apparently have no idea what Mother Nature has in store for us if we challenge her. So of course this is just me guessing, but you know, like a bunch of young students and a bunch of presumably young teachers, because older teachers wouldn't have done such a thing. Of course they're all in favor of the Green Party and they all say, oh, the environment and the climate, but do they actually know anything about nature? Do they have an understanding of nature? No. They probably went up there with flip-flops or sneakers, trying to win some sort of Darwin Award. Anyway, so first of all, I found this story interesting because it is about hiking and going into the mountains. And the other thing is that I think this story uniquely or in an interesting way just explains or shows or makes visible what is going wrong in our society and where it has changed over the last decades. Something like that would have been unthinkable when I was a student. And think about what kind of dangers and what kind of bad and harmful things they're talking about now that we must keep away from our students, like other opinions and new ideas and alternative views, and this is so harmful and dangerous. And then of course a cold is so dangerous that we must make children afraid of a little virus, and then we just take 100 of them into the mountains where they could all die. So you see the pattern in today's society. They want to make children afraid of things that are not scary, that are not harmful or bad, and they are exposing them to real danger, actual real danger that you should keep them away from. On that part, they have no regard for safety and for preparation, none whatsoever. And of course, when I talk about this, I'm not talking only about taking them into the mountains. Obviously, there are other real dangers, as we have seen this week once again. Maybe I say something about this later, but there are real dangers that we're exposing our children to, and that nobody cares about. No, it's even celebrated. It's brave and stunning, and our strength and whatnot. But we tell our children that the real dangers don't even exist and don't worry about it, when this is real danger, that it is your job, it is our job to keep children safe and not expose them to that. Anyway, let me know in the comments down below what you think about that. Enjoy the rest of your day. Servus, Kameraden.